boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the review of the brand new season 2 to be exact, of HBO's prequel series of the highly successful Game of Thrones show, which captivated audience from 2011 to 2019. Of course, we want to forget that last season, but it is what it is. House of the Dragon, season 2, episode 1. It is back to captivate us on Sunday evenings, which Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon has done for so long. And oh boy, it feels good to have some Game of Thrones-ish material on our television screens. This is a show that's based on George R.R. Martin's 2018 book, Fire and Blood. And this show picks up 172 years before the events of Game of Thrones. And it is events that lead up to the decline of the House of Targaryen, a devastating war of succession known as the Dance of the Dragons. And it stars Matt Smith, Emily Darcy, and Olivia Cook, along with many others. When we left off in season 1, literally all hell broke loose. We had a spectacular little dragon battle that led to the death of Luquish, I believe that's his name, in the hands of Aemon, and that left Rhaenyra just devastated. Of course, that's a son, and with tension already at, I guess you could say, a fever pitch. We were already on the brink of war, and that just caused the pitcher to spill over. So now here we are in episode 1 of season 2, entitled "A Son for a Son." We we are really diving into some dark subject matter that we that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon is known for. This episode opens up with a familiar family, not a face, but a family, of course, because we are close to 200 years before any familiar faces that we know from Game of Thrones. But we get to the Starks. We see the Starks over at Winterfell, and it was a joy to see that as the opening scene. You know, one of Rhaenyra's kids over there trying to recruit the Starks and his men for this war. The news has not arrived there yet. Look, this is, of course, before the internet, before Google, before CNN, so they didn't get the news until late. And of course, they'll get the news last because they're so far away, you know, and they get the news and it's like, whoa, things that got real, things that got real. But despite that news, it was a joy to see the Starks and them taking their position at Winterfell. You know, it was a joy to see that. We noticed that there are some differences here. I don't know the exact timeline that took place between the end of season 1 and this episode. I don't know how much time has exactly passed. Has it been a year or so? Has it been a couple of months, weeks, days? I don't know exactly. They didn't really say it. If they did, I missed it. But obviously some time has passed. It feels like years. And the only reason I say it feels like a couple of years is because the king, Lord, what's his name? But Aegon, the king, has children now. And they're not babies. They're more, you know, they're much older now. What, I'll say about 4 or 5, something like that. Maybe a little, maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. It could be older than that. I don't know. But it's been some time. And aside to that little fact, I would say it was a couple of weeks. But the kids thing, that's what really draws me to the conclusion that it has been a few years. And Rhaenyra is still grieving, mourning, of course. Not only is her son dead, but it isn't like she has a body to recover or, you know, because he was devoured by a dragon. You know what I'm saying? But we do get a scene later on when because she's been off uh, in her grieving stage, I guess, searching for proof, searching for anything that would lead her to some type of closure. And while she's been gone, Damon is pretty much in charge, but Damon is out for blood, as he always is. He's headstrong. He wants vengeance. He wants a son for a son. And so he's ready to go to war. But as Rhaenyra is off, she stumbles upon these fishermen who find a dragon wing. And so she rushes down and she discovers the wing, and not only the wing, but the cloak that her son wore. And she gets it, and that scene. Look, Emily Darcy, who portrays Rhaenyra, I think I'm saying her name right. These names is hard. It's hard for me to nail down these character names on Game of Thrones. So by episode 3, I'll have it down packed. But right now, it's a struggle. But anyways, Emily Darcy only had one line in this entire episode, but she really didn't need that. Her acting, her way to emote in this episode was telling. It told the story. Oh my God, her on that beach holding that cloak, and she lets out that cry where she finally releases. And I believe that was her first time actually crying since she got the news. And it was so heartbreaking and devastating because it was like the death of her grief and the birth of her vengeance right there in that moment. That's what we witnessed. And when she returned and Damien asked her, did you find what you was looking for or whatever, and because he has zero zero empathy, his bedside manner is trash. And so he wasn't there to comfort her or nothing like that. But the only words that she spoke while everybody around the table was explaining what's going on, what their plans are, we can attack here and blah, 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 blah. Her only line, her only words at that moment, I want Armand. That's it. I just want him. I could care less about all that. I want the one who killed my son. And that's that paraphrasing what she said in 3 or 4 little words. And you felt it. And you felt it when she said it. Like, okay. And so at this point, that let us, the audience, know that we're on a fast track to war. We know the war was coming, but now we know that it is actually coming. There's no negotiation. There will be no talking down. We are full steam ahead with this, at least in the eyes of Rhaenyra. Now, the king now, Aegon, he's a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. And his grandfather, the High Tower, who is also the king's grandfather, he is trying to make his grandson, the king, Aegon, a king. Make him seem more kingly like, I guess. It's a word I'm trying to make. But Aegon takes this as a joke. He doesn't take it seriously. This is not his jam. This isn't his true calling in life. He's doing it because, he was picked to do it. So he thought. And we know differently. The audience knows differently, but unfortunately he doesn't. And he's more sympathetic to the people. We get the scene when some of the townsfolk or his subordinates are coming to him, pleading to him with certain things, and he's like, "Oh, we took your sheep, okay, fine, we'll give you a sheep back and all this here," and you have the hand come and say, "Well, sorry, we can't do that, we need the sheep to feed the dragons because we need our dragons at full strength for this war," and blah blah blah. And so he doesn't know all the ins and outs of being a king. Uh, Same thing with blacksmiths who are making the weapons and all this here, and they're struggling to make the weapons. They need more money, and so but they can't get paid until after. And they come, well, one of them comes to plead to him, like, can we get the money now so we can work faster and harder and get these out? And he's like, yeah, sure, because we need these weapons for war and all this here. And it's just he doesn't know how to be a king. Like I said, this isn't his thing. At the same time, he wasn't trained to be a king either by his father. His father didn't train him. And because his father never believed him to be king. He did not see him to be a king. He picked his daughter initially. So there's that conflict there as well. So it's a whole thing. Beside his mother, Allison, who is sleeping sleeping with Kristen Cole, which is a clear conflict of interest to say the least. And they're keeping it a secret, of course. They can't have that come out, that the queen is sleeping with Lord Commander. Yeah, that would cause a problem. So, but the hoodinger of this episode was in the final minutes. I'll say the last 10 minutes of this episode is when we get the business is picking up end of this episode. Now, Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon linked together are known for giving us some shocking moments. Did I just see what I just see type moments? And this first episode gave you that right off the bat, or at least at the end of it. And this is probably one of the most disturbing things in the history of Game of Thrones / House of the Dragons, to me. And it's disturbing, not to the point where like, oh, I'm not watching this anymore. It's disturbing to the point like, my God, how far are we going? Are we willing to go in this show? Damien hires this rat catcher who works in the Red Keep, and hires him to bring another guy in through the sewers and whatnot to get in through the castle and murder the king's son. Eye for an eye, son for a son, tooth for a tooth, and all this here. And so they managed to get through, get into the keep. They get to the quarters of the queen, Helena, who is the sister wife of Aragon. Yes, that's his sister that he married and had children with. Look, it's Game of Thrones. Anyways, the assassin gets two assassins get in there, holds Helena hostage. Like, which one is the son? Which one of these kids are the son? She points. After being told, she resisted for a little while, and eventually she points. Now, at this point, I was like, is she really gonna sacrifice her child? At this moment, but she does. She points to the son. And at first the main assassin was like, oh no, she's lying. She wouldn't give up the heir to the throne that easy and blah blah blah. Then the other one, who is the rat catcher, he looks at her and realized like, no, she's telling the truth. That's the son. And they proceed to kill this little boy. This little boy had, I'm telling you, 3-4 years old, something like that. I don't know, 5, 6, maybe. I mean, killed him. And what was so disturbing about this scene is they didn't show him cutting this boy up, but you heard it, and that was worse. It was worse. I didn't think that it would get that bad, but it did. It disturbed me. And this goes with all films and television shows. When a filmmaker leaves it up to your imagination to fill in the blanks, that's the worst thing you can do. And that's good stuff. I enjoy films and television shows that do that. They used to do that back in the day. Not so much now. Now everything is spelled out for you. But this allowed you to fill in the blanks as you hear the cutting and the ripping of the flesh and all this here, and your mind just goes, "Oh my God, they are really slicing this kid up. They are chopping this little kid up with no problems." It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And that was that. That was basically the end of the episode. And now we know this is gonna get deep. They have murdered the king's son, so it's officially on. It is on now. All bets are off. We are at war. Great introduction, great start to this season. I think that we are in for some treats this year. This episode was directed by Alan Taylor, who, I mean, he knows Game of Thrones. He directed so many great episodes of Game of Thrones, and now coming over to do some episodes of House of the Dragon. It felt like Game of Thrones. It felt like we were back in that world. And it's not to take away from what they did in season 1 of House of the Dragon. It felt like Game of Thrones, but this just reeked of Game of Thrones to me, and I really, really appreciate it. I was at full attention. Normally, I have my iPad and I'm taking notes during a show or a movie. This episode, I was fully attentive. I didn't pick up the iPad. I didn't take notes or nothing. You probably could tell the way I was reviewing it, but because I'm all over the place with it. But it's so intriguing, man, to say a show that doesn't have action. It's very dialogue heavy. Normally that would bore the average viewer, but I love the story. I love how Game of Thrones tells a story. George R. Martin is amazing with what he created in those books, and these showrunners who have kept the story going visually on screen. I'm all in. I can't wait for next Sunday. This is premiere Sunday night viewing on HBO and HBO Max. I would like to know, how are you feeling so far about House of the Dragon, season 2, episode 1? Are you picking up what they're putting down? Are you enjoying it so far? Or have you checked out? Or have you checked out and you're like, look, I'm done, especially after season, or the last season, I should say, of House of the Dragon, not House of the Dragon, Lord, of Game of Thrones. You was like, man, I'm done with this. But I would say, watch it. Watch House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is really, really good. Season 1 was excellent in my humble opinion, and it looks like we're back on track this season. Now, this season, this episode, very slow. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a slow episode. It's a slow burn, but it burns. It will scorch you. And so I highly recommend it. But I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for the review of episode 1 of season 2, House of the Dragon, currently on HBO and HBO Max. Or is it just Max now? Yes, it's Max now, which makes no sense to me because it's HBO. It's HBO. Why they took off the HBO off of HBO Max makes no sense. But in any event, new episodes drop every Sunday on those 2 platforms. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.